We need to control the cost of health care. And how do we do that? Insurance companies may be our friend, but I'm sure they're out for their interests, and I would like to protect mine and my grandchildren's interests. The insurance companies, what do they pay out of the premiums that they receive? Maybe 80%, and the other 20% goes into profit or whatever. It's probably no accident that the insurance companies are rather well off. Now, can we do something to help control costs? Will you support legislation that helps us have control over prescription drug costs? It would save us billions of dollars. And if we're serious about the deficit, why not focus on a part we can get some real results? Thanks.
Thank you so much. We tend to focus issues on what committees that we're on. I'm not on the committee relevant to healthcare, but I want to look at the issue that you mentioned in terms of prescription drugs and the pricing in terms of the Medicare program. I think that's fair to look at that. One thing that we have to understand on Medicare is that Medicare and Medicaid tend to have much lower reimbursement levels in terms of providers than insurance carriers pay. And there's some cost shifting over to that. And so I think what we want to make sure that we're getting the best price that we can for the federal government. But we also want to make sure that we're not cost shifting it on to everybody else. But I think that's a legitimate concern to be raised, and I'll look at that. Thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Jay Boyle from Parker.
Thanks for having this meeting. I have a couple questions. Again, on the Medicare, tied to the Ryan budget. Privatized Medicare under the age of 55. I've been in the workforce since I was 18, didn't go to college, got a full-time job right out of high school. I've been paying for Medicare since I was 18. Now, I'm pretty safe because I'm going to hit that 55 age before you in Congress can ever agree on anything in the budget.
Probably right.
But to replace it with vouchers, $6,000 annually, have you priced health care recently? You cannot get health care for $6,000 annually. According to the Kaiser Foundation, Coloradoans on Medicare would see their out-of-pocket expenses increase by $5,700 a year. I don't know about your mother. My mother cannot afford that. We have to do something about this budget. My next issue is when I was in high school, took a civics and U.S. government class, and I thought there was 3 distinct branches of government. Legislative, executive, and judicial. Why can't the legislative branch, or why is the legislative branch negotiating with the executive branch, and why can't they get together and put together a veto-proof bill by compromise, give it to the Senate, and have the legislative branch send it to the executive branch, and if the executive decides that he wants to veto it, then it's on him. But stop negotiating, do the constitutional right thing, have the legislative branch put together a veto-proof bill on this budget so we can move on.
That's a good idea. There's a recent agreement to do that, like that. Let me, on this notion of, first of all, the 6,000 figure, and I have to take a look at that, if that's an accurate figure. But what they do is they take the average. And so they're saying, okay, that the wealthy are going to get less and the lesser income are going to get more. Let's just take the average and let's put that number out. Well, that's not how the system's going to work. And I think the second issue is the voucher notion. Well, all federal employees are on a system, and I believe state employees are too, where you get a list of options in terms of programs to pick. And this is the same thing that exists in the federal system. That you pick a broad program. Next question. Thank you.
Les Burns from Littleton.
to do with some of the Obamacare issue. And I know that a majority of the people in this country did not want it. It was passed without any compromise. It will in fact seriously injure the medical industry that we have now. Is there anything that honestly can be done with it in the future?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, you are right. I mean, the reality is that it was a Democrat-controlled Congress at the time that it passed, and I believe there was well, I think they lost the Brown seat to where they figured out another process to get it through the Senate. But essentially, it wasn't negotiated. It wasn't a bipartisan effort to make it happen. And I think that, and it was the first major piece of social legislation to pass that both parties did participate in some level. And I think, let me tell you, I think that it would, maybe I would have disagreed with parts of it if there was a bipartisan agreement, but there certainly would have been parts that I agreed with. And I think that that's a good lesson learned, I think, from Washington, D.C. And if Republicans take control in 2012, I hope they remember it. My party remembers it if we have the White House and both houses of Congress. Not to just ram stuff through that was done in the first 2 years of this administration. And so I think that it was not a bipartisan effort. But I do believe that it will, you know, we can regulate the private insurance market as a function of government, and we decide what they can and cannot do. But I believe that this particular health care proposal will destroy the private insurance market. And I think that there are some people will. Here's the problem with that. And the problem with that is surrounding so many of the discussions we've had today. And it's this. And it's that when government decides what the price is, government does it, quite frankly, members of Congress do it for votes. And when it's done for votes, it's done at the sacrifice of the next generation. And that's the problem we have today. Next question.
Depends on you voting in your interest or ours.
Next question.
Calvin Moy from Littleton.
Congressman, first of all, thank you for spending your hour with us today.
Thank you.
However, I'm very disappointed with how Congress has performed this year. And I think a recent poll showed that 12% of Americans are not happy with Congress's.
No, wait a minute, I thought it was 13%.
I'll give you that 1 point. With the debt ceiling crisis, which I think was totally manufactured, all that, spent months playing around with that, and resulted with the S&P downgrade of our credit rating, and in my opinion, that made us look pretty stupid to the rest of the world. Having said that, I think Congress already should not. Oh, I agree with the national debt is a long-term, mid-term problem. I think our immediate problem is job growth and economic growth. So, go back to DC. I hope you work on job growth. Thank you.
Thank you. The question was, first of all, a statement about that the debt ceiling issue is manufactured. Well, we wouldn't have a downgrade if it were manufactured. It is a real problem that has to be dealt with. But there is a tension with the economy in terms of how much you